is amplified. You just might have to talk a little closer to it.
So everyone, please grab a Juneteenth pin and have a seat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sabrina, are you gonna?
What do you want me to do? Say hello and okay, hi.
A little bit about. Are you okay?
So grateful you all are here. My name is Sabrina. I work for the town of Lee. I am the executive assistant to the select board and town administrator. About a year and a few months ago, our town administrator came into my office one day and said, I've got a great opportunity you might be really interested in. It's to get the Smithsonian to have a traveling exhibit to come visit towns. They're only picking 6 towns. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll apply for it. So we did. And we were chosen, luckily. So we're one of 6 that this exhibit will be traveling to in Massachusetts this year. It came from Florida before it came to Mass. And we are the second stop. We've been open for a little over about 2 weeks, a little over a week officially, I think. But we've had hundreds of visitors already, so that's really great. Part of this grant experience with Mass Humanities is that we have to put on at least 6 programs with local partners. And we had reached out. We kind of got lucky with the dates that we got the exhibit because we had Juneteenth, we had Pride Month, we had July 4th, and it kind of all goes with this theme. So a friend of mine, Michael Obasahan, who works for the city of Pittsfield, I had reached out to him and I said, we really want to do a Juneteenth event. Do you have any contacts of people you worked with in the past? And he recommended Gwendolyn, said he always has really great luck with her, and they've worked together quite a bit. So I reached out to her. She was also very excited. You were probably like my favorite person to reach out to because you were also just excited about the exhibit coming. So we worked a little bit together to figure out the program, and I was like, you know what you're doing with the Juneteenth stuff. You take over and just let me know what you need. So we are very grateful to have you and have everybody join us tonight. And if you need anything or questions at all, I'll be in the back. The one thing I would request is after you visit with the exhibit and everything today, they are asking, Mass Humanities is asking for people to kind of fill out the visitor survey. It's just a chance to continue getting opportunities like this to come to Lee if people are showing up. So thank you very much, and we'll pass it on to Gwendolyn.
Hi everyone. So thank you Sabrina for all your work in getting this together. It is really exciting to partner with Mass Humanities again, to partner with the town of Lee on a project because, as many of you know, our administrative offices of Bridge are in Lee. So it was nice to be a partner in that way. And we're excited about being in partnership with the Smithsonian exhibit. So I've prepared a few remarks. I want to share that this is my 4th Juneteenth conversation today. I'm happy to be with you all, and I'm happy for the holiday tomorrow. So again, my name is Gwendolyn Van Sant. I am the CEO and founding director of Bridge. Michael Wassahan, who's mentioned, is one of our co-chairs, and we're accompanied by other board members here. Will you raise your hand, please? There's Veronica and Wes here, so yay! We also have our Bridge Youth Corps that's been helping us get set up all day, so will you all raise your hands? Thank you. And we have lots of our Bridge friends in the midst, and thank you all for always supporting us. And we also had Wellness Day on top of our Juneteenth activities, and some of our vendors, like Renisha, is here from Wellness Day. So thank you very much for taking care of our community. So it's my deep honor to be with you today, especially on this day of Juneteenth. It's a day that I've actually only been speaking on for the last 6 or 7 years, and each year it seems impactful, and I feel like the stakes get higher each year, honestly. But I'm happy to be here today. Today we have a program that plans for us to reflect together, to celebrate together, to eat, and also to recommit to actions as a group. Right now our nation is in crisis, as we all know, and it's time that even if it's in another community, we have to feel the impact here and activate as a community. So that's why I think that this is such an important day. It is exciting to be a part of the Smithsonian Traveling Exhibit. This exhibit is Voices and Votes, Democracy in America. It's not lost on me the importance of the Smithsonian having this representative exhibit in this moment. Many of you know that the Smithsonian African American Museum is under threat, right, to be shuttered, cut down. shuttered or resources to be cut. So it's really important for me to see all of the institutions that still double down on their values. So in this exhibit, you can see that it's representative of all of the cultures that make up our country, and I'm really proud to be a part of that. So that's my intro. And that now I want to talk a little bit about Juneteenth. And again, I want to shout out one of our youth leaders, Ronan in the back, and had a Bridge invited to speak at Pittsfield High School today. And I was able to talk to 2 different groups. And we went over the meaning of Juneteenth. And I think it was really impactful for both the faculty that were in the room and the students. And for me, I always say that Juneteenth, it's a day of celebration, really. It is meant to be a holiday in the African American community where we gather together, where we celebrate, where we eat together, and we plan together. Now it's shifted with the federal holiday, and we're in community more. We're doing activities like this more in mixed groups, and that's fine, but it's also important for us to have people remember that, right? This was a holiday, an African American holiday, and now we're sharing it in community together. So some of us are seeking the joy, the rest, and the sovereignty, and others, we're asking you to consider this a day of justice, a day of repair, a day of disruption. Wes and I were talking today, and we were going back and forth on some ideas, and we thought maybe we could add to the list of possible random and generous acts of kindness for the Black community that serves. So that's another thing that we could ask our partners to do that are in the room. Today, I think we're here all gathering and embodying this subtitle of this exhibit, which is Freedom's Echo. I really like that title. I don't know if you did it, Sabrina, or if the Smithsonian did it, but it was a really nice title. I was like, oh, I like that. I'm not changing anything. I feel like that invites us to be grounded in our collective remembrance and resistance and renewal. So as we begin, I'm asking us to hold space for a moment. If you looked at the back, we have some of our happiness toolbox tools of like stress balls and little affirmations, things that Lucy likes. They're all in the back there. But one of the balls says, take a breath. And I think it was TJ that was saying, I'm doing what my ball's telling me to do. So I'm gonna ask us all to take a collective breath together. But with that breath, think about our ancestors, what they've done, what they've sacrificed for us all to be in this room together. And I ask you just in your moment, after you take your deep breath, to say a name out loud, someone that's inspired you, someone that's carried us to this moment together. So I'll do that. Thank you. I heard 2 names.
Shirley.
Thank you. Think of my grandmother Josephine and my mom right now.
Gwendolyn.
Solomon Gatson.
Ida B. Wells.
MLK and Malcolm X.
Peter Ginsburg.
Du Bois.
Harriet Tubman.
Yeah, I heard that.
Marcus Garvey.
Yes.
What was that?
Yeah.
Thurgood Marshall.
Thank you. So I know there are many of our ancestors that are with us here, and thank you for inviting them to be with us in this space today. Let's talk a little bit more about Juneteenth. Juneteenth, it represents a long history of Black civic engagement and celebration. Today is actually, or tomorrow, is its 160th anniversary. It's pretty remarkable. The word, if anyone doesn't know, I'm just going to say it really quickly. You know, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation January 1st, 1863, and it took to June 19th in 1865, so some of your buttons say Juneteenth, 1865, for the word to get to Galveston, Texas. right? So that's the holiday. That's why we mark this day. 150, in 1866 was the first celebration, and that was Jubilee Day. And it was called Jubilee Day for a while before it transitioned to be called Juneteenth. So that's the really brief history. Another part that I learned in getting ready for today that I didn't know before was that one of the ways in which Black community organized in Texas was they took a group of African Americans, got together, formerly enslaved folks, and with $1,000 they bought 10 acres of land. Because although it was very good, obviously, to be freed, there was nothing else given to our people, so they didn't have ways to organize, places to live, it was hard to find jobs. So they collectively got together with $1,000 and bought 10 acres, which is now Emancipation Park in Houston, if you would like to go see that someday. So that's another piece of history that I learned. People mentioned some of our icons locally today with the Pittsfield High School students. We were lifting up our Berkshire legends. We always need to mention Elizabeth Mumbet Freeman, because she sued and won her freedom in 1781. So that predates the Emancipation Proclamation by, who can do the math really quick? How many years? I should know.
80, 90, something. I can't do it.
1781 to 1863. So that much ahead. Elizabeth Freeman and Massachusetts was leading the way in emancipation, right? Another icon that we shared earlier today was Sojourner Truth, who fought for both abolition and civil rights. So she, 1826 to 1863, was really active. 1863, the proclamation was signed. We talked about 1865 Juneteenth, and 1866 started the Jubilee Day celebrations. All the way, if you flash forward, 2021 is when it became a federal holiday. But 2 years before that, 2019, 47 states had it as a state holiday. So Massachusetts and the government decided in 2021, and that, again, I spoke earlier with the students about that being in the wake of George Floyd's murder, and also in the wake of losing many of our Black elders due to the health disparities. So with the pandemic, a year and a quarter in, it really impacted our communities, and we lost a lot of elders. So in a way, this is another gesture on the federal government's part to say that we are seen as a people, as African American people, and the health disparities are known and understood. So that is one of the reasons why I stand in as many Juneteenth conversations as we can, is to uplift that gesture by the government. Today, Ronan, do you want to do this? What you learned about the Juneteenth flag today?
You want me to come up?
I can come up.
Yeah. We made, that's almost on cue. Stephanie Wright's coming with her father, and we used to make Juneteenth flags with our Happiness Toolbox kids, and we talked about what the meaning is of it.
Yeah. I mean, I was aware that the flag existed before Gwendolyn talked about it earlier today, but I didn't know quite the symbolism and how momentous of it. And I find the flag to just be really fascinating and powerful.
And you talk about the arc, the horizon.
It marks a new hope in a way. She talked about the star, of course, in the middle, and then the supernova basically surrounding it, marking basically like a new hope. Like it's a birth of a new star, basically, a new hope.
Yeah.
In the arch, and I just find that super powerful, and every detail about it is super intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So I am personally a big fan of the flag.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about the pop quiz. You did a great job.
All right, Ronan. Put him right on the spot.
No,
He's good at that.
Yeah, it was good. We talked about it outside earlier. And I learned today that it was not created till 1997, so it's a new symbol. One of the older symbols is the red drink. So Stephanie came right on cue. And Stephanie was testing out strawberry sodas with our team yesterday. So part of our meal together today includes strawberry soda. That's one of the red drinks that's traditional. And also it could be watermelon soda. What I learned also in my research is it could be hibiscus soda. And hibiscus is a flower that I love. It's also Jamaica in Spanish. And I never knew that they were all the same drink. If I went to St. Croix or the Jamaica that my friend from Oaxaca made, and then with my new friends from Haiti who are around, this is their national flower, and Haiti is the first freed Black republic in our period. In 1884, they gained their freedom, and so this red also signifies blood and the brilliance of our ancestors. And so I think when you drink the strawberry soda, enjoy it. I know that Stephanie had fun with our team doing taste tests yesterday, but also that it holds significance for our people. And the last thing I want to say is just connecting Juneteenth to this. So again, on Juneteenth holidays, there's celebration, but there's also organizing, right? And a lot of times that's been around getting the vote out, getting people out to vote, understanding and believing and trusting that our vote matters. And as you know, there's been a lot of landslide, like what's that called? When you go backwards, we've been regressing, backslide around our voting rights. And so again, this is really important. And this, I was so thrilled to walk through this exhibit today and see how representative and how truthful it is about our history. And I could hear people coming in saying, I just didn't learn this. Or people that are 70, 80 years old saying, I really got a whitewashed history. So this exhibit really is representative of a true American history that's inclusive. It talks about Black lives, it talks about women's rights, indigenous rights, immigrant rights, differently abled people, LGBTQ. One of the quotes in here from someone that's living with different abilities said, we have to vote because it's a matter of life and death for some of us. And that's just a really powerful quote over there. So that's my intro. I'm glad to see you all here. The room is full. I'm so excited. And so I'm just going to tell you what's next. We're going to get up and go around and look at the exhibit for about 15 minutes so everybody can take that in. Then we'll tell you when it's time to grab some food. We have deliciously prepared Haitian food from our friends, and it was smelling really good when I left. So I think it's going to be good. And then we're going to come down and have some community conversation together, reflecting, and then we have two speakers. One speaker is TJ West, who's behind the camera right now. He'll be up here behind the podium soon. And then Dr. Russell, who's on her way from Boston. She hit some traffic, so hopefully if we keep moving along, she'll get here. But they're going to talk to us and give their impressions and perspectives like I just did on this exhibit and Juneteenth. And then we'll end out with a community conversation. So that's our plan for the rest of the evening. Is that good? Yeah. All right, so some of you, well, all of you check out the exhibit. I'll see when we'll send signal when the food's ready too. All right? Thank you. All right, so I'm trying to find where we are. So can everybody come find your seat because we have an activity to do. I just want you to find a partner, someone close to you, to just talk for a moment about what stood out to you in the exhibit, any questions that came up, and why is this exhibit so important right now. I gave you my 2 cents, but I would love it for you all to share. Okay, so can everybody choose a partner? Maybe if you live with them, don't talk to them, talk to someone else. That's okay. You guys can talk in the car on the way home. Is that okay? So everyone find someone and just we'll talk for 5 minutes. Just what stood out to you in the exhibit? What questions do you have? Why is this exhibit so important right now? Estamos hablando de la arte y vamos a hablar con una pareja. ¿Qué significa esta presentación? ¿Qué preguntas tiene? ¿Está bien? Okay, everyone, you have 5 minutes. Talk to your friends.
In some ways, like I feel like it's so important now because it feels like we are as perfect. A lot of very big people's rights. Really just feel I guess just having the documentation of like what it needs to be.
So many people, some of the how recent it was,
It doesn't feel like
Native Americans, or the age of becoming 18, half of the year after my dad was born. My parents would not
It's interesting also the way it's organized by year rather than like by time. And I really like
Yeah.
And
No.
you get to see the other images, for example, in the sections about protests.
It's my first Please also make sure you've signed in with Rosa. Rosa Ramirez has a clipboard. We'd love to know who came today. And there's also a reminder that for the Smithsonian to register that we were here so that they keep this exhibit and work like this happening. So please make sure you do that before you go.
It's hard to hear you.
Uh-oh.
No,
Oh,
I
'cause
don't
of
think
people.
I don't think it's coming out.
Maybe it's on. All right, so thank your neighbor. We're gonna come back to center. Thank you, neighbor. Where's Sabrina? All right, so anyone want to share out loud in the group? Anything that resonated for you in the exhibit? Something you're curious to bring your family and friends back to see? So anyone want to share? Yes.
Yeah. So this one right here about lobbying really hit me about how it started and how wealth and power in hotel lobbies in Washington D.C. and that's why they're called lobbyists. And it's not changed. I don't know if they're still in lobbies of hotels or just hanging out at the Capitol. But,
Back doors you can't be seen.
Yeah. I missed that. I didn't know that either. There's a lot packed into this.
Wielding the wealthy wielding their power.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else raised for folks?
I was talking about the Electoral College, because just still how it started and how it is and how it's not equal rights for votes. Doesn't mean that the states and the whole roots of states having different power leading really to protect the institution of slavery, but the Electoral College still is so problematic, and we get all up in arms to do something about it, like after Bush v. Gore, and then it's just like what it would take to get rid of it. But a separate thing. The Constitution required that it states that we actually should be looking at the Constitution every 25 years.
Yeah.
And we haven't done that except in specific issues, so it's gotta go.
Yeah.
We were talking some about arcs and patterns. And the abolition movement, the women's rights movement, accessibility in the ways that they repeat in different decades and different times.
I was saying that I found a lot of the images really powerful, especially the images from protests in that section. And I liked how the exhibit was organized by theme rather than time period, so you could see all of that together and all of its patterns together, what you were saying. And particularly that the Life magazine cover from Bloody Sunday, I thought was just so striking, like how much violence the protesters were met with is encapsulated in that single image.
Yeah. Thank you.
I like the petitioning section where it was like, it had one of the earliest petitions to Congress stapled there, and it was also a note of petitioning to end the removal of the Native Americans from the land in
Which land? Yeah.
which land?
In all the lands.
Probably should.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, people have been asking, the exhibit's up through mid-July. We'll be back here July 16th, I believe, it's on the wall, with the Du Bois Legacy Committee and the Du Bois Sculpture Committee, and we'll be talking about the unveiling of the Du Bois statue that'll be happening a few days later on July 19th. So that'll be another fun and interesting event. So hopefully you come back, but in the meantime, there's a schedule and you can come and take some time. I was here for a couple hours because there's really good videos from the History Channel throughout, and it's quite representative, I think, again, of our history for a small space. There's a lot in here, so come back and take some time with it. What else did I want to share? So one of our speakers is stuck in Boston traffic, and I feel very bad because I think she's going to get here when we're wrapping up, but hopefully she can talk to us at the end. Right now we have our speaker, TJ West, and I describe TJ as a Berkshire native like Dr. Du Bois, and also a Morehouse alum who's traveled to several countries, and we often have these little brief encounters where we're talking about Black scholars or Black history in ways that we always want to have more conversation. So when this exhibit came up, he was the first person I thought of to come have a conversation with us. So, welcome.
Thank you, Gwen. When I think about Juneteenth, I actually had a conversation with my friends. Good. So when I think about Juneteenth, I think about the conversations that I've had with my friends. And Black people in America went from being slaves to being free. And one of my friends told me, he's like, it hasn't really been that long since we've been enslaved. And I thought about that. And he's right. 160 years, it does seem like a really long time. But in the grand scheme of things, there are lots of countries that are older than 160 years. So what happened in those 160 years? 1865, we had Juneteenth. In the 1870s, we had Radical Reconstruction, which was the first time Black people in America were getting involved in politics and starting their own businesses, and it was the first time they had autonomy. Before, when they invented something, it was probably the property of their white slave master. But from that point on, they actually were able to take ownership of their own inventions. So moving on into the 1920s, you have the Black Harlem Renaissance, which is you have artists and you have intellectuals and thinkers and sculptors who are creating art and expressing who they are as people. In the 1950s and 60s, you had the Civil Rights Movement where Black people in America are finally trying to get their freedom. They are lobbying and endeavoring, and they're showing the world that they are also human beings and that they are worth the same as anybody else. And so we got those rights. And everybody thinks, oh, well, that's it, right? But no, things weren't equal. In the 1990s, we had the Million Man March. 1995 was a Million Man March, 1997 was a Million Woman March, because things still weren't equal in America. In 2013, the Black Lives Matter movement became a thing, and in 2020, we had the death of George Floyd, which reminded the entire world that police brutality was still an issue and that things in America were not equal. So here we are in 2025, and if anything has remained consistent over all this time is that voices are important and voices matter. And how do you make your voice known? You vote. And some people say, oh, voting doesn't make a difference. Well, I beg to differ. I think that when you vote on a local level for things that matter to you, that's the strongest way to vote. We have voted for the president, and some people didn't get the person they wanted in office. But you still made your voice known and made your opinion heard, and that is important. But when I think of how important voting has been for African Americans traditionally, I think of something I learned at Morehouse, which was before Black people got the right to vote in America, infant mortalities were very high. And within 5 years of them actually getting voting rights in the 60s, infant mortalities dropped 17%. I can't tell you the exact legislation that was passed, but I know that the reason why those mortalities went down is because people had an opinion and voiced it and were able to make a change for the better. So even if you don't think your opinion matters, just having a voice and having it be heard, people listen. So always vote. Even if you don't think you're going to win, you still want your voice to be heard. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much for that. And I wanted to move us into a different part because I talked about Juneteenth being a celebration, so hopefully you enjoyed the food. If people came in and didn't eat, please eat and enjoy the strawberry soda. That's a part of the celebration. Gathering in groups like this is important, but again, also civic engagement and mobilization is important. So I wanted you all to take a few moments in community. There's a lot of us here across a lot of different identities and communities, and talk about what it is that we need to do now. How do we use our voice? How do we want our votes to be acting, right? So, and then what do we want to do? I have some ideas here I'm going to list off about what to do for a Juneteenth call to action, but I want you all to share ideas amongst yourselves. So some I shared earlier today, and I'll share again here, is you can always spend tomorrow resting a little bit, yeah. But then buying from a Black business, supporting a Black artist, right? Reading a Black author, teaching about Black history to your children. There's, I have some others I'm going to skip here for now. Volunteer with a group that are working to protect voting rights. Look some groups up and see. Really work with some Black-led organizations in the area. We have many more in the Berkshires than we've had in the past, so being able to support them and get engaged is really important. I was looking up some policies, and the one that I landed on for today was there's a John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement and Freedom to Vote Act. So looking at how we can support that. I'm really looking at trying to interrupt the voter suppression that's really taking hold. And then beginning to write to our legislators about the issues that are at hand. There's a town hall with Elizabeth Warren on Saturday afternoon. Trying to get into that would be really important. So those are some ideas that I have. But I wonder what you all have of like either what's needed or how you can activate really in honor of Juneteenth. And if you don't do it tomorrow, write it down and make the commitment tomorrow to do it and check back in. But I wanted you all to kind of talk about that. So because this holiday is about celebration, about the freedom of Black lives, but we're not quite there yet, right? We're not enslaved, but there's still a lot of issues, and that this is really important for us to take time in community like this and talk about how we can work together. So
I have one which is your local politics, your local boards, your local town, select board, town, school committees. I personally feel concerned that there's been a shift of people who don't want to see inclusion and equity and a diverse education and diverse conversations in communities are pushing in to be on boards and to volunteer. And so it's important that as many of us that want to preserve and then promote a diverse community and safety and quality for all, particularly in our schools, because kids are really still struggling a lot, and I think the belief is that there's less protections on civil rights. I know that 70% of our civil rights division of the Department of Justice is gone. So having school boards, volunteer, PTO, select board, running for those and voting for those who care about inclusive practices is super, super important. And similar to our housing issues, every town should have an affordable housing committee. There are people on those committees that are swaying against having opportunities for affordable housing in our communities, and taking away rights of people who are losing safety and security in housing. So I feel like there's places where we can be to be a voice, not speaking for, but to elevate the voices of a community of people who are being silenced.
thank you.
I want to go basic, really basic, foundational. That's the teacher in me. I spoke with someone, an African-American woman in her 50s, about 2 years ago, and I said something to her about Juneteenth, and she asked me what was that. And I was shocked. Like, I'm an immigrant. Like, how do I know what Juneteenth is? And you're born and raised in the Berkshires, and you have no idea. So let's start educating each other. That's where I would start.
Yes.
Your family, your friends, people around you who have no idea.
I think history gets erased and retold. A lot of people don't know that Stockbridge was Native American, and and the landmarks go away, or they're hidden, or something else is bigger put in front. So it has, yeah, it's about history, telling your history to your children. Doesn't matter who you are, as long as it gets told and it's truthful.
Yeah, yeah. I was saying earlier that I've been in here for a few hours getting ready, and I was hearing people speak, and they were talking about being born and raised in the Berkshires, and they were older than I am. And they were saying, I just didn't learn a real history. I understand now that I learned a whitewashed history,
Yeah.
what am I to do about it, right? I was listening, to a lot of different conversations as they were going through this exhibit. They were learning things for the first time. And so I think that that's really important, both of your comments of educate your neighbors, educate your family members, right? And then also be curious about maybe what you didn't learn accurately, right?
Yeah, that is so true. I grew up in Long Meadow, Massachusetts, moved out here in 2004. But growing up, we talked to Martha all the time about, in our family, there's 2 black families in our town. And we didn't have, and our kitchen table discussions were about sports, because we were all athletes, me and my 2 brothers. We didn't talk about current events, not because, I don't know why. And our school system was, we didn't have an education that talked about racial issues. There weren't any. And when I got into high school, they bussed a couple of kids in from New York with the ABC program, A Better Chance.
Yeah.
And they were great folks and all that, and we loved having them in our school, but it just really wasn't education for us.
Yeah.
And so I think the diversity and the stuff in school has to be pushed. Even going to a town meeting a few years back when they were gonna change the name of the school down in Great Barrington, and how that was a struggle.
Yeah.
Because people didn't want it to be named after the socialist W.E.B. Du Bois and stuff like that. And it's like, this guy is an amazing person who, he's one in a million that pushed and pushed and pushed, and we didn't know about him. I grew up down the road,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be that. There should be a lot more stuff educated, and it was all whitewashed. And we say it every time. With the internet, we can look up all kinds of things. I choose to look up, and I find stuff, and then I double check it to make sure it's true.
That's good.
But we have to do that more and more and more. And the struggle for that, and then the financial inequity everywhere. It's just,
Yeah, thank you.
it's hard to make a change if you gotta get somewhere and you don't have the funds to go there,
Yeah.
It's what's taught at home. It's what the parents teaching their children. I mean, I grew up not far from where Newton, Mass, and we learned from the Negro spirituals. We sang the songs, so we had to learn the history. We had
What's
to.
that?
Negro spirituals?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Songs.
W. Du Bois' friend.
Is it a singing group?
No,
No,
there's songs that
spirituals
were
like gospel
sung in
songs,
the
like the
field.
spiritual songs, like freedom songs,
Yeah.
And they-
That was a rhetorical?
So they were,
No,
I thought you were, sorry.
oh,
You did say this, but.
they were sung in the fields. They were a way of giving messages to other,
sorrow songs.
yeah, and they would call them spirituals.
Yeah, spiritual,
So we learned that way, a lot of history that way.
So I want to say a couple things. So what just happened is, like, you talked about how you weren't taught, you talked about how you were exposed to something, and then what Dr. Jean had said is that there's some of us that are African American that it takes a long time for us to access our own history as well. So Renisha asked a question, right? I had to learn post-college a lot of the history of things I was looking for actively in college, right? I had to find it afterwards. So this is like, we all suffer from this whitewashed education in different ways. And so it's not to be surprised, it was done by design. Right, it was done by design to separate us and to not educate us in what's already happened before us. I mean, this is a whole exhibit about all the activism that's happened before
What do
us.
they call
So
that today?
I just wanted to say that, and then Joaquin had his hand up, and then Stephanie.
Yeah. I feel like schools, like elementary schools, should have more meetings with their students
to include more on Juneteenth, and it's understandable that the cutoffs for the days don't match up with Juneteenth, but it should still be held once a month every June meetings so students are able to learn more. Because me personally, I have not learned as much as I have today about Juneteenth.
Thank you. Thank you. And you can talk this summer with, because I think Ronan here was instrumental with a group at PHS of getting that organized in his school today. And lots of community members, we all went in to support that learning. So sometimes the teachers need support. So that's, yeah. Stephanie?
And one going, I was going back in time when we went to PHS with a group of African American males and how the children reacted to that, the students in that school. They had never been able to see that group of people come in with their life stories. And those children learned a lot, those students that day. They learned quite a bit about the black men in Berkshire County, because you got them from all towns. And they all went in, and the students stood back in shock and awe at the same time. And they really learned a lot about what went on in Berkshire County. I think if we can volunteer ourselves and get into more schools and they can hear those true stories that truly took place all the way back to maybe the 1940s, 1950s, they're still, like my father's still alive in his 90s. And they can tell stories about what went on and what took place, and it would be accurate, it would be true.
Yeah. So estamos por un minuto. Estamos hablando cómo podemos avanzar los derechos de la Constitución de Liberación y cómo vamos a activarnos ahora. Este día está celebrando la libertad de los americanos africanos y es una exhibición, ¿cómo se dice? Para esta historia, pero también tiene la historia de derechos inmigrantes, de derechos de LGBTQ, de derechos de todo, está aquí. So, estamos hablando ahora cómo movilizarnos para activar para las cosas que están pasando ahora. Y para mañana, que es día feriado de Juneteenth, es un día de celebración, pero también un día de activismo. ¿Activismo? ¿Está bien? ¿Un resumen? ¿Está bien? Okay. Yeah.
One thing I would say, I think it'd be interesting, I was thinking about that, we have our friends here who, you know, language, it's a lot of this is thick language and it's in English and it's, but I wonder if at some point the technology couldn't be that QR code to actually give a translation in different languages. That would kind of, I know that we have what we have now, but I'm gonna send an email as a suggestion, because if there was the technology to be able to just, rather than do the whole exhibit, but to be able to have, most people have phones and have that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
So that people wouldn't feel like this isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
I'll send that in.
All right. Ooh, all right. Yes.
So, the more they get, the more.
Yeah.
So Jean just did the research on the Negro spirituals are now commonly referred to as African American spirituals, Black spirituals, or simply spirituals. While Negro spiritual was a widely used term historically, it is now considered outdated and potentially offensive by some. The term spiritual compasses to the broader genre of Christian music associated with African Americans. So maybe
You're responding to the language that was used.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So did that. That makes sense. All right. And over time, that's something that's not in this exhibit, of whether we are called Negroes, African Americans, what do you call them, people, blacks. That's not, I don't like to hear people say the blacks. That bugs me. So, I mean, you know, so sometimes things change over time, but then also, you know, we were all educated in different ages, and so that's something to be aware of and to check in on, because it can trigger folks and responses. Yeah.
And the author is James Weldon Johnson.
Yeah.
but you was referring to a book.
Yeah,
Right.
written
Yeah.
that him and his brother, I guess. put
Yeah.
together.
James Weldon Johnson had a house in Great Barrington too.
Yes.
So it's one of the most important things when we talk about voting, and we're talking about educating people and educating ourselves. We might want to remember that this year, school councils, city councils, all of those offices are coming up for election. And if these people are not doing their job, then maybe having that little dinner table talk that you were talking about, to gather people to say, what are we missing? Because all of the schools in Berkshire County can have the history of African Americans in the schools for the kids from K through 12, so that people are aware, all cultures, all races, all groups, they can learn. But they can't learn if we don't go and vote and ask for it to be put there. And if you have people that are on your committees, a lot of positions are being voted in now, superintendent positions, deputy superintendents. You know, all of these people have the power to make change, and they will not make that change unless you
We use our
that-
voice, right? Our voice.
Yes, you have to use your voice. And if you don't get what you want, you know, there's always the appeal process. But learn the process, engage in the process, and then make a difference.
And keep books on shelves. Let's find the banning of these.
All of that is part of that.
Yep.
I just want to kind of jump off that as somebody that works in a municipality. When we have town meeting or town election, there's people that don't show up. They have no idea that it's happening. They don't take all the information down. And they'll like an election will happen, and they'll be like, I didn't even know there was an election. Or, yeah, like, I don't know what's on the warrant. And the town now, at least we have an open town meeting, so everybody actually has a voice now. And you can go, and you can sit there, you can say whatever you want, you vote out loud, you vote on a ticker thing, so people don't even have to see your vote really. But there's always opportunities to get involved in your towns. Like right now we have tons of board and committee positions that are very open, and it's like Lee specifically, there's a lot of people on those boards that have been there for years. They're older white men, and you just want a younger generation there, different cultures there. You want everybody's voice. So there's usually always opportunities where you live, and if you just kind of take that step yourself to kind of figure out what is available for you to offer, you yourself could, you know, make the change as well. So I just want to say, just because I see that every single day that people don't really show up, but you always have a chance to, I think.
No, I'll add also, I think for some people, I grew up in the, you know, for me, reading the newspaper, and I majored in political science and became a lawyer, so reading the newspaper is something I've done. I subscribe to the Eagle. Eagle's not perfect, but there's also other outlets like the Berkshire Edge, you know, other places where you can get news. But for people who are like, subscriptions to news is expensive, every public library, so your public library will have access, even if you can have access to online news. So people are like, oh my gosh, now for subscriptions, I'm spending, you know, money that I need for my family. But you can get access to newspapers and periodicals and all the information you need at your local library. They have online access to, I think, to multi-language periodicals, but reading current events and knowing about what's happening in town, you know, I'm super nerdy that way, but at the same time, I do think you're like, oh, I didn't know that they were talking about eliminating foreign language in school, right? Like, those are the kinds of things that are coming up, taking away foreign language. Civics is a state mandate, so they have to have civics, but who's teaching it, you know? And having the opportunity for field trips, those are things that are getting voted out, no field trips. Those are opportunities for kids to touch and have hands-on with exhibits about the Stockbridge Munsee, exhibits about W.E.B. Du Bois, the ability to go to the Rockwell Museum, and really to be able to move, to engage with learning. But schools they'll pull that stuff out. And professional development for teachers, sending teachers to cultural opportunities to learn, because they're teaching our kids, but maybe their teaching is stale and it's from teachers who haven't learned that it's inappropriate to say certain words out loud in the classroom. How are they engaging with language? Those are the people that are teaching our kids. So if they don't have professional development, then they're not up to date on their teaching. So these are all integrated in your budgets and your town meeting and your committee. So again, I didn't mean to be on the same thing, but I just wanted to say that I think accessing information can be hard because there's too much and too little. but I think your library is really the place to get that. Because everything has a paywall now.
Yeah, everything.
Just, just really cognizant or just thinking about how important it is to support grassroots organizing like with Bridge, because, certainly voting is important. Not all of the members of our community, not all of the residents are able to vote. Not every kind of civic engagement that requires being on camera and naming one's name and address is okay.
Yeah.
It's not safe for everybody to do that. And there's just obviously more power in numbers. So, just thinking about the individual votes and also the kinds of grassroots organizing that happens, that Bridge is leading is really critical. I think there's a lot of yes, we can all be empowered to learn together and on our own, but really the action, collective action is just really important for so many reasons and safer for so many reasons too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Matt?
Yeah, Ronan, and then you.
And I mean, Joaquin, he's been saying that he's learned more today than at all. And him growing up in a school, and my aunt even growing up in school systems where African and generally racial issues weren't discussed or talked about, isn't a broken system. It was exactly the way it was designed to work. It was exactly how they wanted it to work, whitewashed, and how they wanted to present history. So getting people into schools, because these kids do want to learn. They want to be educated. When Gwendolyn visited PHS today, I mean, there was just so many kids that kept coming up to me and like, this was a great presentation. I loved it. I learned so much. Teachers were saying, can you forward this presentation to me? I mean, I want to show my kids this next year. So it's not the people in schools' absence of wanting to learn this. It's the people in charge who's elected who are saying, let's not have this in our schools. I learned this when I grow up, so it's fine for you to keep learning this. It worked for me, it's good for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, sorry, I didn't actually realize this was going to be here today, so I'm so glad I stopped in to see it. But this is something that's very close to my heart. I just wanted to say, we can't stop working hard for keeping justice, economic, racial, language, etc. in line, because I hate to say this, our current president is not in support. As a matter of fact, he's aggressively against DEI. And this is something that my whole life, when I was 17, my family worked hard to go door to door to convince our neighbors to allow a black family to move in to our neighborhood. And we won, we got enough support that the first black family to be allowed to move out of the ghetto moved in next door. And that's with my heart. We have so much to do. I've been involved in politics since then,
You
my
from
whole life.
here? What's your name? Where you from?
Steve Cowell, I'm from Tyringham. Has anyone heard of Tyringham?
Yes.
Oh, you have? Oh, it's a little town over there. That's where I am now. But I've been involved with this my whole life. I ran Southern Ohio for John Kerry, and I hate to say this, Republicans got lawyers to what?
You were the mayor?
No, I ran it. He asked me to go and get out the vote. So I ran get out the vote for him.
Oh, okay.
And-
Campaign.
Yeah, campaign.
Oh,
It's
okay.
campaign for president.
Oh.
Yeah, John Kerry ran for president. And, we're pretty close, and we have joint friends, and he knew I was involved in,
Oh,
political
okay.
work. Anyway, the Republicans hired lawyers to go, people were lined up to vote, and anyone who was black, they approached them and told them that they would go to jail. If there was anything wrong, they better go home, or they might go to jail.
And sir, what year was this?
This was, when did?
I'm just,
2004.
It was like, right.
2004.
Which is
And
sickening. It's
I
sick.
hired, I
Okay,
basically
it was
got a
19.
team of lawyers and we got a team of voting rights activists. And I don't know whether the picture of my jacket with voting rights activists on it, but we got lawyers to go tell those lawyers who were doing that they would go to jail because what they were doing was illegal and voter discrimination. And, you know, we didn't win that election, but the next one, Barack Obama ran, and he asked me to go back to Ohio and Cincinnati, right, to get the vote out. And so one of the things we did is we organized on Sunday, early voting, buses to go from black churches all around the district of Hamilton County, around Cincinnati, to go to vote, right? And we got John Lewis came to talk to people in line and talk to people who were waiting to vote to convince them. It took some people to wait for 2 hours to vote because we got hundreds and hundreds of people to come. And what was amazing, one of the amazing things, John Lewis was amazing. He was just a wonderful person, and watching the discussion between him and a lot of the young black people who were waiting to vote didn't really know about the civil rights movement in terms of the details. So seeing that discussion between John and the people waiting to vote who were in their 20s, right, was just a wonderful event. Barack Obama won the election, right, and I felt so good. He asked me to come and have lunch with him in the White House because when Southern Ohio was called for Obama, they called Ohio. And when they called Ohio, they called the election. And so he wanted to thank me. The first thing he said was, "Steve, buddy, thanks for getting me elected. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you."
Nice.
So how's that?
Not Ohio.
Huh? Yeah, Ohio. In Southern Ohio, when that went, they called all of Ohio. And when Ohio went, they called the election. So basically,
That
just,
made it.
and being
Thank you
able
for
to
what you did. Thank you.
meet with Barack Obama and, you know, have him tell me thank you. He knew what had happened. So that means we have to keep going because, as I said, the current politics is not good. It's very negative. We've got to fight with good and positive against negative. Because remember, this president has said DEI is discrimination against white. He literally, he said that, which is, I don't want to do a 4-letter word.
Asinine?
That's one. But at any rate, look, our whole world, our whole life, over history, we have to fight and work hard for justice, equality, and that's true for all of us to work together. And thank you for you know, being here and doing this, because we have to keep doing this.
Yes.
Day in and day out.
We do.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So with that, thank you. We have just about 20 minutes. I really hope Alexandra gets to at least come say hello, but I'm gonna ask us to pivot a little bit. Write your notes to the Smithsonian. Write your notes to us. We're gonna get some paper, there was some paper over there, about what your action is gonna be for Juneteenth. And then we'll gather back up to say goodbye. So we'll just say goodbye with Alexandria or without. Okay? So make sure you please, you've signed in with Rosa, that you've taken some Juneteenth paraphernalia, that you, we'll find you some paper. Our youth leaders maybe will help me get some paper for people to write down their action item. And then, what was the last thing? Oh, and Sabrina will help us respond to the Smithsonian. Because again, I think it was Lucy and I were looking at it. This is important that this is still a representative exhibit because the Smithsonian could, you know, cow to the threats, right? But this exhibit is still on the road, it's still representative, it's still, as we've heard tonight, teaching a history that not all of us have access to. So I think it's important.
How did this get here?
I think the short of it is, Lee was selected by Mass Humanities to apply for this grant, and it's going to 6 towns or cities in Massachusetts, and Lee was selected as one of them.
So great.
So it's great. It's a surprise. It's a surprise to be at the outlets, and I'm glad that we're all here.
So is it to represent Juneteenth or America?
The exhibit is this Voices and Votes about Democracy in America. It came here at a time that when I was asked to partner, it was right in the bookends of Juneteenth and the Du Bois statue going up. So when I was invited to partner on topics that they knew Bridge would bring around race equity, those are the two dates and topics that I chose. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Keep going, folks. Keep going.
All right, so everybody please, it's important to give the feedback tonight, and also, it isn't just a platitude. We really will follow up with you if you allow us to have your information about how you're gonna activate, and it's a really important part of honoring Juneteenth. It really is. How are you gonna align and activate, keep all the work going? Okay? So we have crayons, we have pens, we have paper, we have little pieces of paper, so lots of ways in which you can... Not today. At Bridget. So if you don't have any Juneteenth paraphernalia, our young one here is passing it out. And everybody, are you ready? Excuse me. If you hear me, clap once. If you hear me, clap twice. If you hear me, clap 3 times. All right, yay. All right, so Dr. Russell has arrived from Boston. Yay! Perseverance. So I think I spoke a little bit earlier, but I met Dr. Russell in her time when she was at Tanglewood as an interim director of the Archives and Community Connections, and so that's how we met. And I know I made that up, but those are the 2 themes. And 2 themes. And I learned a lot from Dr. Alexandra around her work around Black women leaders and how we lift them up in their, I can't speak anymore, my brain is shut off, in their monuments, and so I thank you for being here. And I think my brain is shut off, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for being so gracious. I was fighting Boston traffic for a few hours, but I'm so happy that I made it. I like celebrating Juneteenth for a couple of reasons, and I think that the exhibition here, Voting in Democracy and Juneteenth, it's like the perfect kind of dissonance that I like to talk about in my own work. You know, 2 things can be true at the same time. Juneteenth is a time for us to come together and celebrate and remember our history. It's a living memorial, so to speak. But there's also this other underlying aspect of Juneteenth that I always think that it's important for us to remember. And that is the cruelty of white supremacy. Not just the cruelty of slavery, but living in a country and being legally free but still being bound. What does that mean? You know, that's the underlying truth of Juneteenth. What does it mean to be declared a citizen by the 13th Amendment and, you know, given citizenship rights, given voting rights, but still not having that freedom? And Juneteenth gives us a chance to grapple with both of those truths. So I would also recommend Annette Gordon Reed's On Juneteenth. If you want the precise history about the origins of Juneteenth, although it was founded in Texas, there were other spaces where Black people were not free. Even in 1865, the Civil War ended in April. Juneteenth is commemorated in June because that's when many people in Texas found out of their new status and were given the ability to emancipate themselves. And so for the more precise history on what the day means, I would look to this. But as we think about democracy in our current moment, think about the resonance. You know, the cruelty that some of the systems held up by white supremacy have in our lives. And what does that actually mean? It means that we have to, despite our current climate, continue to come together and have joy and celebrate with one another. That's what Juneteenth represents. You know, there were celebrations throughout the history of Texas and beyond that were broken up by Ku Klux Klan raids that were prevented from even happening. Many people question even today whether or not we should even celebrate Juneteenth as a national holiday or a statewide holiday. And so we have to recognize the reality of the systems that create difficult circumstances and experiences, not just for African Americans, but particularly for African Americans when we're talking about Juneteenth. And we also have to remember that despite the constant barrage of negativity, the constant barrage of legislation and public convictions against us as a people, there is always kind of this hope and this enduring spirit. And so as we close today, I would ask for you to remember the somberness of the history and why we even celebrate Juneteenth. But also remember that African Americans and people of Black descent, African descent globally are a resilient people whose spirit continues to endure, and that's something that is worth celebrating every day of the year. So thank you so much. I'm happy to talk to you more about Juneteenth or memorialization. But again, I'm happy to celebrate and remember with you all today. Thank you.
So the phrase that we use at Bridges, I am complete. We are complete. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here this evening. Hopefully you all were able to engage with each other and be reflective, learn something new, and we'll see you next time. So there is an event on July 16th here. It's 3 to 5 o'clock. And that again is about the preview of the unveiling of Dr. Du Bois, and we'll have a panel, and our W.B. Du Bois Legacy Committee and Sculpture Committee will be here in conversation with you all. All right?
Thank you.
Okay. Oops.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.